Think about this for a second. If saving money feels harder now than ever, it is not because you suddenly became bad with money. It is because the American system is quietly reshaping the way you think, spend, and react. Here is where the story flips. Even households making over $100,000 a year are struggling to save. In fact, surveys show that 58% of high earners still live paycheck to paycheck. You have probably felt this too. Your income rises, yet your bank account never seems to follow. Rent climbs faster than wages. Groceries jump without warning. A single medical bill can wipe out months of progress, and every app, subscription, and tap to pay gently pushes you to spend just a little more. Stay with me here, because this part surprises most Americans. The real reason you are not saving more is not that you buy coffee or enjoy the occasional dinner out. It is that the financial world around you is engineered to keep you reactive instead of intentional. It encourages convenience, distracts you with micro-spending, and hides the true cost of your lifestyle behind easy monthly payments. And here is what most people completely overlook. Those tiny habits, repeated every day, quietly determine your long-term financial direction far more than any budget ever could. But everything you have heard so far is only the surface, because the deeper problem starts long before you ever try to save. If you have ever wondered why saving money in America feels like pushing a boulder uphill, stay with me, because the environment you are living in is very different from the one your parents grew up in. You have probably noticed it yourself. Prices move faster than paychecks. Housing disappears from the market before you can even schedule a tour. Groceries feel like they gain 50 cents every time you blink. And here is where the story flips. This is not a personal failure. It is a national pattern. Let's start with the basics. More than 60% of Americans report that their rent has increased faster than their income over the last 3 years. A gallon of milk costs 25% more than it did pre-pandemic. Childcare in many states now reaches $20,000 a year, which is more than a small mortgage. Medical deductibles quietly rise even when your insurance premium stays the same. It is no wonder that even families earning above average feel stuck in the same cycle, month after month. Think about this for a moment. When every category of life becomes more expensive at the same time, your brain starts making trade-offs without you noticing. You choose convenience because you are tired. You choose delivery because you are short on time. You choose the buy now, pay later button because it feels easier. Individually, these choices seem harmless. Together, they form the invisible drain that keeps your savings from moving. Here is what most Americans completely overlook. Our financial system is designed to make spending effortless and saving effortful. Tap to pay creates micro-habits. Subscription models normalize recurring charges. And the rise of monthly payments gives every purchase a softer landing. But this convenience hides a harsh truth. The average American now has more than 12 active subscriptions, and half of them go unnoticed for months. That alone can quietly eat a few $100s out of your budget before you even realize it. Pause for a moment and imagine this. You wake up, grab coffee on the way to work, tap your card for lunch, order groceries online, and finish the day with a streaming service binge. Nothing feels extreme, yet by the time you fall asleep, you have made 7 to 10 spending decisions without thinking. Frequency is the silent killer. Not the dollar amount, but the rhythm. And then there is housing, the anchor of the American financial story. In states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida, home prices have jumped more than 40% in just a few years. Even renters are caught in the crossfire, since landlords pass higher costs down. So, if you feel like your paycheck evaporates within days, it is not in your imagination, it is math. But here is where the real story begins. Even if inflation cooled tomorrow, even if rents froze, and even if your groceries returned to normal, millions would still struggle. Why? Because the core challenge is psychological. After years of surviving in a financially demanding environment, your brain creates a pattern, a script that says, spend now, deal with it later, and this script runs on autopilot. Think about this micro hook. When life feels unpredictable, people seek comfort. And comfort often comes from small purchases that promise quick relief. This is not a character flaw, it is a human response to stress. But when this happens repeatedly, it becomes a cycle that silently rewires your financial instincts. And this next part blindsides most people. The struggle to save is not about discipline, it is about design. The system shapes your habits long before you try to change them. Because the deeper insight you need, the one that changes everything, is waiting in the next section. Stay with me here because this is the moment where everything begins to click. You have heard the surface-level explanations for why saving money feels difficult in America. Inflation, housing, groceries, debt, lifestyle creep. But the real insight that ties every source together is deeper and more psychological. It is the idea that your money behavior is shaped long before you ever make a conscious choice. And here is where the story flips. Saving is not only a math problem. It is a mindset problem created by your environment, your habits, and the financial culture of the country you live in. Think about this for a moment. Most Americans grow up hearing simple advice. Save money, buy a home, live within your means. But none of that advice matches the world we actually face. According to a recent Federal Reserve report, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck at least twice a year. That includes nurses, engineers, teachers, even high earners in booming cities like Austin or Denver. You have probably noticed this yourself. People making $100,000 or more still feel like they are barely staying afloat. This is not because they are irresponsible. It is because the cost structure of American life has outpaced the cultural script we were taught to follow. Now pause for a moment and imagine this. You wake up in a world designed to capture your attention and your money in small, constant ways. Your morning coffee has a loyalty app. Your grocery store has one-click ordering. Your streaming platforms auto-renew. Every company is fighting for a tiny slice of your wallet, and they are using behavioral science to get it. They know that humans value convenience, emotional relief, and quick satisfaction. So they shape your choices before you ever recognize what is happening. Here is what most Americans completely overlook. You do not overspend because you lack discipline. You overspend because the system is training you to make micro purchases without friction. A tap is easier than a wallet. A subscription is easier than a decision. A 4-payment plan feels easier than a full-price charge. This is the psychological trap created by modern finance. When spending is easy and saving is invisible, your instincts lean toward the path of least resistance. Let us bring in the second big insight, the one drawn from behavioral finance. Humans do not make money decisions logically, we make them emotionally. What feels urgent beats what feels important. That is why your brain says yes to $20 today and ignores the fact that it becomes $600 by the end of the month. That is why an unexpected bill disrupts your entire rhythm. That is why a small raise gives temporary relief but never changes your long-term situation. You respond to stress with choices that solve the moment rather than improve the future. This is human nature, not a personal flaw. Think about this part carefully. The reason you struggle to save is not because you do not know the right choices. It is because your environment rewards the wrong ones. When life feels overwhelming, your brain reaches for comfort, a dinner out, a ride share instead of the bus, a delivery fee that saves 10 minutes. None of these choices are extreme, but repeated often enough, they shape a financial identity without you realizing it. Here is where the story gets even more interesting. Every American has what psychologists call a financial thermostat. It is the internal number your brain accepts as normal. If your bank balance rises above that number, you subconsciously spend more. If it falls below that number, you tighten up. And yes, this pattern is measurable. Financial analysts have found that most people return to the same ending balance every month, regardless of income changes. You have probably felt this yourself. New job, higher pay, same stress level, same outcome. This is the financial thermostat at work. But here is the punchline. You can only save more by raising this thermostat, and raising it requires awareness before action. That is why every expert, from researchers to money coaches, tells you that tracking your spending is the foundation of everything else. Without awareness, you are driving in the dark. With awareness, you can finally see the road. Stay with me, because this insight connects all three of your source videos. Americans are not failing because they spend too much on small luxuries. They are failing because they lack a system for noticing how often they spend. They are failing because easy payments distort the true cost of their lifestyle. They are failing because high fixed expenses remove their breathing room. They are failing because they were taught that saving is restriction rather than freedom. And they are failing because their goals are vague, boring, and emotionally distant. So what is the core idea that unifies everything? Here it is in one sentence. You save more when your environment and your psychology align with your intentions instead of working against them. Let us break that open with an analogy. Imagine trying to diet in a house filled with snacks on every counter. You might resist for a while, but eventually the environment wins. Money works the exact same way. If your environment is full of triggers that encourage spending, your willpower will always lose in the long run. But if your environment promotes intention, clarity, and limits, you naturally save more without feeling deprived. Here is another punchline that surprises most viewers. Saving does not start with earning more. Saving starts with thinking differently. And that shift in thinking comes from recognizing the deeper forces at work. Because the moment you understand that the system is influencing your behavior, you can finally take back control. You can redesign your environment. You can reduce spending frequency. You can identify the leaks in your financial bucket. You can raise your financial thermostat. And you can give your brain new motivations that actually excite you. But the most powerful way to understand this shift is to see it play out in real American life. A life like yours. A story that begins the same way many stories do, because the character in the next section could easily be you, your friend, or someone in your own family. And this next part is where most people get blindsided. Picture this for a moment. A small apartment complex in Phoenix, Arizona, where the sun hits the sidewalks so hard that the ground ripples. Inside one of those modest units lives a woman named Alicia. She is 34. She works full-time as a project coordinator for a mid-sized tech company. She earns a salary that should feel comfortable, $85,000 a year. On paper, she looks stable, but if you sat with her at the kitchen table on a quiet Sunday morning, you would hear a very different story. Stay with me here because this part mirrors the experience of millions of Americans. The rent for her one-bedroom apartment has climbed to $1,500 a month. Groceries cost so much more than they did 3 years ago that she laughs every time she sees the total. Half the items in her cart never feel like luxuries, just basics: eggs, chicken, rice, vegetables. Even with careful planning, she spends almost $1,000 a month on food for herself and her 7-year-old son, Marcus. Now imagine her monthly rhythm. Twice a month, she receives her paycheck. It feels good for about 24 hours. Then the money disappears. Rent, car payment, insurance, utilities. After that, she has 3 or 4 subscriptions she barely remembers signing up for. A streaming service for Marcus, a fitness app she never opens, a meal kit subscription she swears she will cancel but forgets about every month. It is the perfect example of what researchers call micro-leakage. Small, constant charges that add up quietly. The average American loses more than $200 each month to subscriptions they do not use. Alicia is living proof of that number. Here is where the story flips. Alicia believes she is relatively responsible with money. She packs lunches for work. She buys generic brands. She does not splurge often. When she does, it is usually something tiny, a milkshake for Marcus to celebrate a good report card, a $7 iced coffee on a stressful morning, a $10 toy she knows will make him smile. None of it feels reckless. None of it feels like the reason her savings account stays at the same number every month. But these choices happen often. The frequency is the danger, not the amount. Pause for a moment and imagine the scene. It is the end of the month. Alicia logs into her bank account and sees the same depressing balance she saw last month, and the month before that, and the one before that. Her financial thermostat has held her in place. Even when she received a small raise last year, nothing changed. The raise vanished into higher rent, higher groceries, and a few extra moments of convenience spending. She never felt richer, she simply felt caught up. Now here is the emotional turning point. One Thursday afternoon, her car breaks down in the parking lot at work. She calls a tow truck. She feels her chest tighten because she knows the repair bill is coming. The mechanic tells her it will cost $1,200. She feels the breath leave her body. She has $400 in her savings account, only $400. She drives home in silence, with Marcus in the back seat asking if everything will be all right. She tells him yes. Inside, she is not sure. This is the moment most Americans recognize too well. One unexpected bill creates a wave of panic. According to national surveys, 43% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency without borrowing money. Alicia is part of that statistic. She goes home that night and stares at the ceiling. She realizes the truth she has avoided for years. She is not saving because she never built systems to support saving. She is reacting to life instead of shaping it. Here is where her story becomes powerful. The next morning, she sets a simple rule. She will track her spending for 30 days, not because she expects to transform instantly, but because she needs clarity. She downloads a free budgeting app. She connects her accounts. She categorizes her spending for the first time in her life. It takes 2 hours and shocks her in 5 minutes. She sees that she has been spending nearly $300 a month on delivery fees and convenience purchases. She sees that she has been spending nearly $300 a month on delivery fees and convenience purchases. She sees 2 subscription services she forgot existed. She sees her car insurance increased without her noticing. She sees the leaks she could never see before. Think about this micro hook. Awareness creates change long before discipline does. Alicia finally sees the story her money has been telling behind her back. And this next part surprises her. She does not feel ashamed. She feels relieved because now she understands what has been happening. She decides to try an experiment. She groups her spending. Instead of 5 small purchases a day, she chooses 1 intentional spending window. She buys groceries once a week. She deletes her delivery apps. She packs snacks for Marcus so she will not buy more on the go. She makes her coffee at home 4 days a week and buys it only on Fridays as a small treat. The change is subtle, but it matters. She also creates a separate savings account labeled Future Alicia. She sets up an automatic transfer for $25 every week. Only $25. It feels manageable. It feels painless. And over the next few months, she watches something small but meaningful happen. Her savings account grows. Slowly, quietly, without her feeling deprived. Now here is the punchline. The result is not the amount saved. The result is the shift in her financial thermostat. For the first time in years, she sees her balance rise instead of fall. And that creates a new emotional pattern. She wants to keep it rising. She wants to protect it. She wants to build on it. Saving becomes a small source of pride rather than a source of stress. But the real turning point arrives 6 months later. Another unexpected bill appears. A medical bill for Marcus that insurance did not fully cover. Instead of panic, she feels something new, stability. She has enough saved to cover it without spiraling into debt. She feels capable. She feels confident. She feels like she is finally shaping her life instead of being shaped by it. And here's what most people completely overlook. Alicia did not escape her situation by earning more. She escaped it by seeing more. Awareness created intention. Intention created structure. Structure created progress. But the lessons she learned, the ones that changed everything for her, are the same lessons that most Americans never hear. And the principles behind her transformation are waiting for you in the next section. Now that you have seen Alicia's journey, let us shift from her individual story to the broader principles that apply to almost every American trying to save in a financially difficult environment. Stay with me here because this is where the deeper learning begins. These principles are not generic advice. They are the underlying forces that influence your financial life, whether you notice them or not. Think about this section as the blueprint that explains why small changes work and why they matter far more than you think. Let us start with the first principle. Awareness beats willpower. This sounds simple, but it carries enormous psychological weight. Your brain cannot manage what it cannot see. Without awareness, you move through your financial life on autopilot, like a driver cruising down a dark road without headlights. This is why tracking matters long before budgeting. It is the foundation. It is the moment the lights turn on. Research shows that Americans underestimate their monthly spending by more than $200 on average. That gap destroys savings silently. Here's the analogy that makes this clear. Imagine trying to diet while forgetting everything you eat during the day. You would always feel confused. You would always feel stuck. Money works the same way. When you shine a light on your spending patterns, intention grows naturally. And here is the punchline. Awareness creates momentum, and momentum is what replaces willpower. Once you see the truth of your spending, you cannot unsee it. That alone reshapes your behavior. This principle becomes even more powerful in the next lesson. The second principle is this: frequency is more dangerous than amount. You have probably heard people say that small purchases do not matter. A daily coffee is fine. A snack now and then is fine. A $7 lunch upgrade is harmless. But here is the twist. It is not the cost of the item that erodes your financial progress. It is how often you repeat the act. Americans make an average of 30 financial decisions per day, from taps to subscriptions to minor conveniences. Each one seems insignificant, yet the repetition forms a habit loop. Think about this analogy. A single raindrop cannot damage a stone, but millions of raindrops over time carve entire landscapes. Your spending frequency shapes your financial landscape the same way. When you reduce the number of times you spend, you reduce the number of financial leaks without ever feeling deprived. This is why grouping your purchases works. It lowers the friction points. It lowers the chances of impulse buying. And here is what most people overlook. Reducing frequency is easier than reducing dollar amounts. It gives you control without sacrificing joy. This brings us to the next principle, which connects directly to the emotional side of money. The third principle is this: your environment always wins. This may be the most important financial truth you will ever hear. Humans are not logical creatures by default. We are emotional decision makers living inside systems designed to trigger those emotions. In the United States, convenience culture and digital spending make money feel abstract. When you cannot see your money leave your hand, the emotional impact disappears. That is why tap to pay increases spending. That is why automatic renewals stay active for years. That is why buy now, pay later feels painless even though 60% of users overspend while using it. Here is the analogy that ties it all together. Imagine trying to eat healthy in a house filled with candy jars on every counter. You might resist for a day or a week, but eventually environment beats discipline. Money works exactly the same way. If your financial environment encourages constant spending, discipline becomes exhausting. But if your environment encourages reflection and awareness, saving feels natural. And here is the punchline. Change your environment and your habits will follow. The power is in the setup. You are not weak. The system is strong. This leads us to the fourth principle, which blends psychology with practicality. The fourth principle is this: Raise your financial thermostat. Every person has an internal comfort level with money. If your balance rises too high, you spend until it feels normal again. If your balance falls too low, you tighten up. This thermostat is shaped by your upbringing, your stress levels, and your environment. Now here's the twist. You cannot save more until you raise the minimum level your brain accepts as normal. This is why small automatic transfers work. They slowly shift your internal expectations. This is why a separate savings account works. It separates money you see from money you use. Neuroscientists call this pattern identity reinforcement. When your brain repeatedly sees a higher savings balance, it begins to form a new identity, the saver identity. And that identity influences future decisions more than advice or discipline ever could. Here is a microhook that brings this home. You do not save money by forcing yourself to behave differently. You save money by becoming the type of person who sees saving as normal. When identity shifts, behavior follows. And now we come to the final principle, the one that transforms motivation. The fifth principle is this: saving must feel meaningful to work. Many Americans fail to save because their goals are vague. Retirement, someday. A house, eventually. A future emergency, maybe. None of these create emotional energy. Human motivation thrives on vivid imagery. If you cannot picture the life you want, you will always choose short-term comfort over long-term progress. Here is the analogy that explains this clearly. Imagine trying to climb a mountain without seeing the peak. You would never feel inspired. You would never feel direction. Money works exactly the same way. When you choose goals that feel personal and alive, your brain assigns value to saving. It stops feeling like restriction. It becomes a path toward freedom. And here is the punchline. People who visualize their savings goals save up to twice as much as people who do not. That is not motivation, that is neuroscience. These 5 principles form the foundation of a healthy financial life in a country where prices rise unpredictably and convenience tempts you at every turn. And here is the moment that matters most. Every one of these principles is within your control. You cannot control the economy, you cannot control inflation or rent or healthcare, but you can control your awareness, your environment, your frequency, your thermostat, and your sense of meaning. Yet the most powerful shift is still ahead, because once you understand these principles, you are ready for the deeper transformation. And that transformation begins in the next section. Pause for a moment and imagine a life where money no longer feels like a constant source of pressure, a life where your savings grow steadily, a life where unexpected bills do not shake you, a life where you feel calm when you open your banking app instead of anxious. This is not about becoming rich. This is about building a philosophy that gives you space to breathe. Stay with me here because this part reshapes the way you look at money in a deeply human way. Most people think money is only about math, income, expenses, savings, debt. But the truth is far more complicated. Money is a reflection of your identity. It affects how safe you feel. It affects your sense of control. It affects the way you move through the world. When your finances feel unstable, everything feels unstable. Your job feels fragile. Your relationships feel overwhelming. Even your future feels uncertain. This emotional weight is why so many Americans feel tired before they even start. In a country where nearly half of households cannot handle a $400 emergency, the stress is not imaginary. It is lived every day. Here is where the story flips. Financial peace has less to do with the size of your income and more to do with the space between your needs and your obligations. That space is your margin. Margin is what allows you to think clearly. Margin is what allows you to make choices instead of reacting. Margin is what allows your future to feel bigger than your fears. And margin does not come from giant paychecks. It grows from intention, it grows from alignment, it grows from small, steady systems that become part of who you are. Think about this analogy. Imagine a glass of water filled to the very top. Even a single drop will cause it to spill. That is what living paycheck to paycheck feels like. No matter how careful you are, one surprise can overflow your life. Building margin lowers the waterline. Suddenly you have room. Suddenly you have calm. Suddenly you have choices. When you understand this, saving money stops feeling like punishment. It begins to feel like protection. It becomes a gift to your future self. Here is what most Americans overlook. Money is not only a tool for buying things, it is a tool for buying time. When you save consistently, you are not sacrificing joy, you are purchasing freedom. Freedom to say no to a job that drains you. Freedom to take a break when life feels too heavy. Freedom to care for your family without fear. Freedom to choose rather than settle. When you think about saving this way, the emotional meaning changes. Saving becomes a soft place to land. It becomes reassurance. It becomes a quiet form of self-respect. Stay with me here because the next insight matters even more. Your relationship with money shapes how you show up in the rest of your life. When your finances feel chaotic, you react quickly. When they feel stable, you respond thoughtfully. This is why building healthier money habits often improves confidence, emotional resilience, and even relationships. You are not just organizing numbers, you are organizing your mind. Here's another punchline. True financial strength is not about never experiencing stress. It is about recovering from stress quickly. People who build systems for saving and spending create emotional shock absorbers. Life will still send unexpected bills, cars will still break down, healthcare costs will still surprise you, but your response will no longer be panic, it will be clarity, it will be power, it will become. Think about this final analogy. A tree grows its roots long before it grows its branches. The stronger the roots, the more the tree can withstand storms. Your financial philosophy is your root system. You strengthen it by choosing clarity over confusion, intention over impulse, long-term peace over short-term relief. When these values take root, your financial life becomes steady, and your steady life becomes a place where hope can grow. But the real transformation comes when you decide to take the next step, because financial peace is not something you wait for, it is something you build. And the invitation to begin is waiting for you in the final section. If you made it this far, take a moment and appreciate what that says about you. Most people never pause long enough to rethink their relationship with money, but you did, and that choice alone puts you on a different path. If you are ready to keep building clarity, confidence, and calm in your financial life, I would love for you to stay connected. Comment, "I am leveling up," so I know you are committed to your next chapter. I read every comment because your journey matters. And if this video helped you see money in a new light, consider subscribing so we can keep growing together, one intentional step at a time. Your future self is already grateful you started today.